Under the towering shadows of Hollywood legends, some children vanish, some rebel, and others quietly build a life out of the spotlight. This is the story of what happened to Nicole Kidman's four children, raised between the Church of Scientology and country music ballads, split by continents, philosophies, and a mother's longing for connection. It begins in the early 1990s when Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise were the golden couple of Hollywood, a power duo radiating red carpet perfection. But behind their carefully curated public image was a private heartbreak, a miscarriage that shifted their dream of family into a different path. In December 1992, they adopted a baby girl born in Miami. Her name was Isabella Jane, Bella for short. Nicole was just 25, newly famous, newly grieving, and suddenly a mother. Bella's arrival marked the start of something tender, and for a while their family unit looked solid. Raised primarily in Los Angeles under the enormous umbrella of Cruise's fame, Bella's early years unfolded inside mansions and movie sets, with household names drifting in and out like casual dinner guests. But while her parents dominated tabloids, Bella was absorbing the quieter, stranger rhythm of their private world, especially its deep ties to Scientology. As the years passed, Bella became more closely connected to her father's religious circle. Nicole, by contrast, never fully integrated. When the couple's divorce landed in 2001, Bella was just 8, and from that point on, her world aligned increasingly with her father's orbit. She stayed in Beverly Hills, grew up surrounded by church confidants, and eventually spent time in the UK, where she carved out a life for herself far from red carpets. Instead of following Nicole into acting, Bella took a quieter route: art school in London, then work in fashion, and finally launching her own clothing line under the name Isabella Kidman Cruise. The use of all three names felt intentional, even if Nicole and Tom were largely absent from public mention in Bella's adult life. Her brand was personal, handmade, scribbled with her own drawings, nothing borrowed, nothing flashy. By the time she married British IT consultant Max Parker in 2015, the world barely noticed. No paparazzi, no Vogue spread. Neither Nicole nor Tom attended the wedding, though both reportedly supported her privately. What stood out in hindsight was how completely Bella had turned the volume down on her legacy. While her last name belonged to cinematic royalty, she lived like someone uninterested in inheritance. She remained in the UK, kept her Instagram mostly to drawings and short captions, and only occasionally surfaced in rare public sightings, like in late 2023 when she was photographed with her brother and father at a hockey game in Tampa Bay. For someone born into such an extraordinary household, Bella chose the extraordinary route of ordinary privacy. It's as if she decided early that fame had a price she didn't want to pay, and instead built her adulthood in soft colors, soft posts, and soft refusals to engage. But she wasn't alone. 2 years after Bella's adoption, in January 1995, Nicole and Tom welcomed a second child, Connor Anthony Cruise. This time, it was a boy born in Florida, and Nicole once described his arrival as a grounding joy during the peak of their marriage. Connor grew up with more sunlight than Bella, quite literally, more outdoor sports, more hobbies, and a deep love for deep-sea fishing. He was louder, more visible, even dabbled briefly in acting during his teenage years, appearing in a few Hollywood productions including the Will Smith film 7 Pounds and the Red Dawn remake. But just like his sister, Connor eventually moved away from Hollywood's core and built a quieter life. In his 20s, he pivoted from film to DJing, spinning tracks across Miami and LA clubs, then found lasting satisfaction in a world far from any stage: the ocean. Fishing became his sanctuary, his business, and his lifestyle. He settled in Clearwater, Florida, also home to the Church of Scientology's spiritual headquarters. There he lived in a tight-knit community, operated a barbecuing business called Connor's Meat Shack, and posted occasional selfies of fishing trips or golfing with friends. He seemed content, rooted, and far removed from the Kidman urban media machine. While Bella disappeared into the London fog and Connor into Florida's coastline, Nicole's life changed dramatically. In 2006, 5 years after her divorce from Cruise, she married country star Keith Urban and began a second act that looked nothing like her first. By then, Bella and Connor were teenagers. They stayed close with their father, while Nicole started a new family entirely, from scratch. And in this second chapter came Sunday, Rose and Faith Margaret, daughters born of a different rhythm, different marriage, and different kind of fame. Their story begins where Bella and Connor's left off, shaped not by silence or withdrawal, but by love that was louder, gentler, and finally, hers to keep. If Bella and Connor had grown up in a world of controlled privacy and quiet estrangement, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret were raised under an entirely different sky, one defined not by detachment, but by deliberate presence. When Nicole Kidman married Keith Urban in 2006, it wasn't just a new romance, it was a reset. By this point, she had endured the loss of a marriage, a deep fracture with her two oldest children, and a long, silent struggle with fertility. But in July 2008, in a hospital in Nashville far from paparazzi flashbulbs or Beverly Hills estates, Sunday Rose Kidman Urban was born. The name Sunday was not chosen for trend, but for reverence. After Sunday Reid, an Australian patron of the arts, and perhaps also for the calm and renewal the day symbolized in Nicole's new life. Sunday was the first child Nicole carried to term, and with that came a powerful shift. For the first time, motherhood wasn't a distant arrangement or contested narrative. It was hers, biologically and emotionally, from the very beginning. From the earliest years, Sunday was described by her parents as curious and musical. She grew up not in a Hollywood mansion, but a home in Tennessee, surrounded by Southern charm and acoustic guitars instead of film sets and tabloid photographers. With two global superstars as parents, Sunday had access to fame, but not pressure. Nicole and Keith made it a point to protect her childhood from the industry glare. Still, some things were inescapable. She picked up their Australian-American hybrid accents, absorbed their creative energy, and by age 2, could belt out a repertoire of songs ranging from lullabies to show tunes. Acting soon followed. In elementary school, Sunday landed her first role in a school play, and Nicole, now seasoned, scarred, and softened by time, was no longer an actress juggling guilt and custody. She was the mom running lines with her daughter, sitting in the front row, clapping loudest. It was a contrast so striking, it nearly wrote its own epilogue to the first act of her life. But Sunday's story wasn't confined to school plays. As she entered her teenage years, the child once shielded from the spotlight chose to step into it on her own terms. In April 2024, Sunday and her younger sister Faith appeared on the red carpet for the first time, supporting their mother at the AFI Life Achievement Award Gala in Los Angeles. It was a quiet debut, but by October that same year, Sunday made her runway debut in Paris, walking for Miu Miu in a crisp white dress, black socks, and open-toe heels. Her appearance turned heads, not just for her poise, but for the deliberate maturity of it all. This wasn't a child star launch or a parental project. It was a 16-year-old claiming her space in the fashion world, backed by quiet encouragement rather than managerial ambition. She walked again for Miu Miu in March 2025, more confident, more expressive, hinting that this wouldn't be a one-time statement, but possibly the beginning of a career. Her father, Keith Urban, beamed with pride but also caution. He knew fame could be addictive and unforgiving, and as someone who'd battled addiction and fame himself, he seemed to approach Sunday's rise with both joy and quiet prayer. Nicole too beamed, but the difference was visible. This time, motherhood wasn't something she had to chase through transatlantic flights or read about in headlines. It was there, hand in hand on carpets, in backstage hugs, in late-night TikToks, and shared screening rooms. Sunday wasn't just present, she was proud. In March 2025, she joined her mom at a Nashville screening of Holland, Nicole's latest film, and posted a glowing tribute calling her mama and championing her career. It was more than a sweet gesture. It was the kind of public support Nicole had never received from her older children, and in that, a quiet emotional wound was acknowledged without ever being named. But Nicole and Keith's parenting story didn't end with Sunday. In 2010, they welcomed another daughter, Faith Margaret, via gestational surrogate. Born in Nashville like her sister, Faith's name wasn't ornamental. It was the embodiment of everything Nicole had endured: the miscarriages, the medical procedures, the silent years of waiting. Faith was the child they had almost given up hope for, and her middle name honored Nicole's grandmother, grounding the new life in legacy. While Sunday explored runways and film, Faith's presence remained gentler and more internal. She was known for loving cars like her father, bonding with Keith over Google searches and engine specs. Theirs was a quiet alliance in a household dominated by female energy. Faith also had an early taste of voice acting, joining Sunday as a baby bird in the Angry Birds movie 2, and both made blink and miss it cameos as extras in Nicole's hit series Big Little Lies. But as Sunday stepped into the spotlight, Faith remained mostly in the background, attending events, supporting her mother at awards galas, but never pushing forward. In December 2024, she appeared beside her mom at the Hollywood Reporter's Women in Entertainment Gala, looking composed and poised but clearly uninterested in outshining the moment. Unlike her siblings, Faith has kept her public expression minimal. No official modeling stints, no acting headlines. Just a teenager who, when asked, quietly shows up for her family. It's too early to say whether she'll step into the limelight or step around it. But one thing is clear: she was wanted, longed for, fought for. And that's a story she carries with quiet power, even if she never tells it out loud. As Sunday and Faith grew up side by side, they offered Nicole something the first two children hadn't: an uninterrupted chance to mother. Not through lawyers, not through distance, but through daily life. This second family didn't erase the complexities of Bella and Connor, but it rewrote the meaning of motherhood for Nicole. And in doing so, it allowed her to heal a part of herself the world never saw break. By the time Faith entered her teenage years, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban had settled into a rhythm that balanced fame with fierce intentionality. Unlike the media circus that followed Bella and Connor through their fractured years, Sunday and Faith were raised in a household that prioritized normalcy, however loosely defined that could be for two children born to global icons. But in the quiet corners of their lives, each daughter began to shape a path that subtly mirrored, and sometimes corrected, the emotional turbulence that had defined Nicole's earlier years as a mother. Sunday's modeling appearances were more than a fashion debut. They were declarations of identity. Faith's presence at award shows, though quieter, hinted at a quiet gravitas, a loyalty born not from obligation, but from love. Nicole, having once endured the pain of seeing her name omitted from church registries and her parental ties downplayed in media blurbs about Bella and Connor, was now publicly cherished by her daughters in ways that felt deeply redemptive. Yet as Nicole's bond with her youngest girl strengthened, the shadows of her oldest children still lingered, not in scandal, but in silence. Bella, who had once stayed mostly anonymous behind her artwork and cryptic Instagram posts, began surfacing more frequently in 2023. When she appeared at a Tampa Bay hockey game with Tom Cruise and her brother Connor, it wasn't just a family outing. It was the first public appearance with her father in nearly 15 years. It wasn't lost on observers that Nicole wasn't there. Bella, now an artist and fashion designer in her own right, seemed to live a life comfortably distanced from both her parents. Her marriage to British tech consultant Max Parker in 2015 was low-key, reportedly absent of any celebrity guests. And while Cruise was rumored to have quietly footed the bill, Nicole's happiness was noted through third-party sources, not in shared photos or heartfelt tributes. Still, her evolution was quietly impressive. From training in hair and makeup at Del Mar Academy to launching her own fashion label, BKC, Bella's creative world was built on solitude and sketch pads, not red carpets. She posted her art online, usually ink or marker on paper, filled with abstractions that hinted at introspection. Bella didn't rebel or perform. She simply vanished from the public's grasp and resurfaced on her own terms. Connor, on the other hand, flirted with the spotlight more directly, briefly acting in films like 7 Pounds and Red Dawn, then shifting gears into music as a DJ. But by his late 20s, the loudness had settled into something quieter. Fishing rods, grills, and a house in Clearwater, Florida. The boy, raised under media scrutiny, now lived in a Scientology community, running a barbecue business called Connor's Meat Shack. His social media became a hybrid of fishing selfies and meat rub recipes. Like Bella, he had crafted a world outside his parents' shadows. It wasn't a rejection, it was insulation. And despite the physical and emotional distance, neither child ever publicly criticized their mother. In fact, when Nicole won major awards or appeared in films like Being the Ricardos or Holland, there was rarely a whisper from Bella or Connor. No applause, but no bitterness either. Just a silence that seemed to preserve a complicated truth. Love doesn't always look like presence. Sometimes it looks like absence without resentment. In contrast, Sunday and Faith had grown into young women who could post photos cheering for their mom, who could stand beside her in gowns or voice animated birds in her projects, not as child stars, but as daughters enjoying their mother's world. There was no edge of controversy, no tension in the way they supported her. But it was clear that this closeness didn't erase the past. It just existed beside it. Nicole herself had once said she would have loved 10 children. That wasn't just a wistful exaggeration. It was a window into her psyche, a woman who saw motherhood not as a box checked, but a calling she was never done answering. Bella gave her resilience. Connor gave her perspective. Sunday and Faith gave her redemption. All four, in their own way, told the story of a mother who kept choosing family, even when family didn't always choose her back. And through all of it, Keith Urban remained a steady anchor, not dominating headlines, but quietly protecting the home they built. As Sunday stepped further into modeling and Faith edged toward young adulthood, Nicole found herself no longer chasing the dream of motherhood she once clutched in her 20s. She was living it, flawed and full. Today, her children span 3 decades, 2 continents, and radically different relationships to fame and family. Some stay close, some remain distant. But all of them, by blood or by bond, are chapters in a maternal journey that defied Hollywood's obsession with optics and proved something deeper. That motherhood isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. If you found this breakdown powerful and want more deep dives into the hidden lives of Hollywood's forgotten children, subscribe to our channel. Your support brings these invisible stories to light. Thanks for listening.